Hello, beautiful. Welcome to the Sacral podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Christian. Let's go ahead and get started with today's episode. Hello, sacral beauties. Welcome back to the Sacral podcast, the podcast that is focused on helping women recover from burnout through the power of sacred pleasure. Today, we are diving in and we're going to talk about the creative code, the creative side of the sacral chakra energy. As we know, our sacral energy is our sacred energy. It's our space and our energy within our bodies, our minds, our spirits that represent sacredness, creativity, pleasure, connection, and emotions. So in this episode, we're going to be awakening your creative energy, not from the space of hustle or pressure, but from emotion, feeling, and sacred flow. And your sacral energy does not create from a space of logic, not using your logical brain, but it utilizes the space of energy to create, the energy that lives within inside of you. And when you understand this on a deep level, you stop forcing creativity and you start feeling it. Creativity isn't just about painting or writing or designing. It's how you emotionally respond, express, and shape energy into something new. And so when we dive in and talk about sacral creativity, this is really focusing on transformation of emotions into form. And every person is creative because every person feels. Whether it's movement, it's conversation, it's cooking, it's dressing, it's loving, these are all creative expressions. And so when you feel something so deeply and you let it move through you, that's creation. And so I feel like we get hung up a lot of times on just the act of creativity and not the actual process of creativity. And when we think of AI and how it creates, right, it's really, we're thinking it's creating because maybe it's generating art or, you put in a prompt and it generates an image or whatever. But creative energy from a sacral standpoint is really coming from that space deep inside, knowing that it cannot just be suppressed in there for very long. It has to be put into a space of form in order for you to really release it. And so we're all divine creators in our own right. That's what we do. We always create. That's how we manifest. That's how we create new spaces. That's how we create communities. That's how we create, right? And it has to start first from a feeling. That feeling, that emotion is our little spark to create the next thing. So now I want to move in and talk a little bit more about what blocks creative energy. Burnout can cause emotional shutdown where your creativity just flatlines. Perfectionism and performance disconnect creativity from pleasure, right? We're losing the art of creativity. We're losing the enjoyment, the fulfillment of the creativity where we're able to just really allow for our emotions and our feelings to drive what is being created. And when we create something and it's put into form, you'll know that it's created from an emotional space because that energy, that emotion of what that person was feeling, as it is put into form, even if it's just words, it doesn't really matter. Once it becomes something that can be seen, felt, heard, smelled, anything that we can be able to interpret it with our own senses, you'll notice that there's almost this bridge of transference between that emotion of the person that provided the thing that they're creating to you feeling that emotion. Let's just say you watch a movie. You're watching a movie and there's a sad scene. The actors are able to express all these deep emotions, or they're able to express anger or sadness, and you feel that from them. That's because that energy is already inside. So that's the power behind that creative energy. And sometimes trauma can teach the body that expression means danger. So we can be taught when we're put in these spaces of danger or traumatic experiences that we need to be quiet, that we have to be still, to not be seen, right? We're almost in this space where we feel so fearful that our existence feels threatened. And that looks different for everyone. But there's always something about the way that we express ourselves gets shut down. When we go through inner child shame, if you've ever been told that you're not good enough or that's silly, or if you say to yourself, who do I think I am? No one's gonna like this. Nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna take me seriously. That's coming from a space of our inner child wounds many times. As a kid, did you ever make something creative or drew a picture? And of course, you are still developing a lot of skills in your brain, and your motor skills are still being developed. So of course, compared to maybe an artist that's had 20 or 30 years of experience, the painting or the drawing, whatever, will reflect differently in those stages. And instead of it being from a space of awe, wow, that's amazing. You literally were able to express something from within yourself, even as a young child, into something that can be seen. That is amazing. That is beautiful. But a lot of people can have a very surface mentality. And if you had an adult as you were a child, or other kids, or a teacher or whoever, and you draw something, it's oh, that doesn't look very good. It's where's your emotional intelligence? And that can really shut down wanting to continue to express yourself, because now the energy has been shifted from you just expressing yourself to you having to earn validation and acceptance for your expression. And that's not really the point of creativity. You know what I mean? The point of creativity is to just get out what is within, not to be judged on what you're getting out. And so a lot of times we can run into this creative block, even if we're under a lot of stress, like I said, burnout and things like that, where even if you are a super creative person, if you are just so emotionally drained, that creativity is going to be really hard to bring to the surface. And I can honestly say that from experience. I am highly creative. I love to just constantly create, my mind's always going, and I have to be able to express that. I have to be able to put it into form because I feel it, right? And so I knew something was wrong when I went through my own stages of burnout, where I'm I don't want to create. I don't want to do anything. I don't, you know what I mean? I was just so shut down. And so if you're in this space, some energetic symptoms of a creative block can look like constantly overthinking, or feeling uninspired or apathetic, or comparing yourself to others, or being afraid to even start things or finish things, right? You can kind of feel almost very frozen in this space. And creative energy doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to permission. It responds to you allowing for it to come out because it's already there. And so now I want to shift over and I want to talk a little bit about emotional alchemy. And this is one of the big powerhouses of the sacral energy, is that the sacral energy that is within your mind, body, spirit is to turn emotion into motion. Emotions can feel so heavy sometimes. And so it's a matter of being able to do something with that emotion, turning tears into poetry, or grief into dance, or longing into beauty, or joy into a meal. And I think when we take this time to slow down, and maybe how we're feeling in that moment when we're in a really happy state, or we're feeling really good and we're cooking a delicious meal and we're just envisioning so much of this wonderful experience, you can feel that same emotion when you eat the food. The food can become euphoric just by you having the energy of euphoria when you're cooking. You will naturally kind of choose foods that will bring out that euphoric energy. If you notice nowadays, a lot of the food that's out there, particularly or especially in America, everyday food, there's no love put into the food. There's no emotions put into the food. Everything is just a production assembly line, and you consume the food, you feel that energy as well. It kind of just goes in and out. You don't really feel anything from it. But I myself have felt when I eat something of maybe a really high quality or a really expensive restaurant, or even if I take my time and I prepare my own food, but I fix a very big meal that I'm really excited to taste, I literally have that high after I eat the food. That is how we're supposed to be consuming the things that are being created. So if you consume something, whether it's food, whether it's something you're seeing, whether it's something you're listening to, whatever you feel when you experience that particular thing is the energy that was put into it when it was being created. It's important that we understand that when it comes to emotional alchemy, it doesn't rush, it doesn't explain, it doesn't have a timeline, it doesn't have, a things to do list. It's just there for expression. So emotional flow is creative flow. And when it comes to your emotions, pain and joy do not need to be fixed. They don't need to be controlled. A lot of times we try to control the emotions. They just need to be released. They need a voice. They need a shape. They need to be released from what is in your body into a new form so you don't have to carry those emotions anymore. And when you let yourself feel deeply, crying, dancing, humming, swaying, painting, just freely, these are natural portals for you to be able to express those emotions that you have within yourself. So if you've been struggling with a creative block, I know how that feels. And, this space of this podcast, this is my creative expression. I have been podcasting for years. I podcasted on a totally different podcast. And I got a lot of thoughts out, a lot of things out, and it was great. But I ran into this space of burnout. I ran into the space of feeling resentful. I ran into the space of all of these negative emotions. And so I could not actually utilize that podcast as my form of expression because that's not what it was aligned with. So I had to just walk away, take a sabbatical, take a break, and pull myself away from the thing that I started. And I had to start something new from a new space of what I was ready to express, which is now this new podcast and soon this new community and all of the new and beautiful things that will come from my healing of my burnout. And so that's the beauty of it. There's so much that can be created from even spaces of pain. And so if you're in this space and you've been feeling creatively blocked, the first thing you want to do is start to remove those goals. Remove the pressure. Remove the deadlines. And focus on feeling. You can even do a 5-minute emotional movement. Let music move your emotions, not just your body. Choose songs or music that aligns with either the emotion you're wanting to express or the emotion you're wanting to feel, and see how you naturally react to that. If you feel this deep feeling of feeling stuck with sadness, sometimes just listening to sad music can be so therapeutic to be able to release and cry it out. It is so transformative. Another way that you can start to reignite that creativity is to choose a color to express how you feel. Maybe draw with it. Maybe wear a shirt of this color, or wear that particular color in your outfit or your clothes, or cooking with that particular color. That's the beautiful thing. I think there's, There's so many different foods that we can eat that we can express those emotions through that color. So if you're feeling sad or if you're wanting to feel calm, a lot of times blue is really good for that. Or if you feel a lot of anger or a lot of passion, red can bring that energy out as well. A lot of times joy and happiness can be aligned with yellow. I know a lot of people don't really favor yellow too much, but yellow, orange, citrus colors, bright colors, colors of the sun, that represents happiness. So these are just ways that we can begin to just start, especially when you feel very blocked in your creativity. Another thing you can do is begin to write out a stream of your feelings or your emotions instead of a to-do list. Have you ever done that before? I personally haven't, but I think I'm going to try it out, where just throughout the day, whatever I'm feeling in that moment, I'm going to write it down. And I think it would be so interesting to just see the shifts and changes of all the different moods and feelings that I would feel that day. And I think it would be so interesting. And another way to spark that creative flow is to begin to just kind of take an objective view of your life. Look at all of the different textures you have in your space, the sounds that are around you, any patterns, any colors, any sensations that are in your space, and see if you can find some resonance or common denominators in those spaces. Do you have a lot of things that feel very smooth? Do you have a lot of things that feel very rough or spiky in your space? Is there a common theme surrounding the things you have in your home? One of the things that has helped me whenever I'm in this space to repeat to myself is that my emotions are worthy of expression. A lot of times we don't feel like our emotions are that important or they're not that big of a deal or they're an inconvenience, but allowing yourself to just express those emotions and giving them a space to form is really powerful. And to not create to be seen, but to create to feel free. This is about freeing your body when you release those emotions that have been tied up in there for so long. You know, you ever meet really happy people? They just seem like really kind and really happy, but maybe they're a writer of horror films or scary stories. There's a lot of darkness that's in their minds. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of feelings that maybe they've held for a long time. The most brave and respectful and honorable thing that they can do is to be able to give those things form in a way that is contained. So instead of harboring that darkness within and allowing for that dark energy, those dark emotions to fester and to be directed at other people and to cause problems for others or cause manifestations of disease in the body because we're holding so much emotion in. That is a very powerful way to be able to get those emotions out into a form that can be felt by others or experienced by others, even if it's just for entertainment. It's not really for others, it's really for yourself. It's the way that you free yourself from the bondage of those negative emotions because they have to go somewhere. Those emotions are energy. So to keep them locked up, whether it's jealousy, it's envy, it's insecurity, it's fear, it's anger, it's grief, whatever it is that's just festering inside, that's got to be released in some form because it will always be released in a form regardless. It's going to be released in either the form of disease in the body, disease in toxic relationships, disease in the mind when it comes to negative thoughts, and it just binds you. It locks you up. So if you've been struggling with suppressing your energy, look to creativity to be able to free yourself from that and see how you feel afterwards. We always want to be able to create the energy of flow and movement. Flow and movement. And there cannot be flow and movement when you're holding so tightly onto old emotions on top of that. And I think also when you look at past generations, expression was not a priority. Just look at certain generations of people and also look at the amount of creativity that was there throughout each generation and make a comparison. You'll notice a big difference. And I feel like a lot of times we say like everyone's getting younger, or you look at people that are a little bit older nowadays compared to past generations that were the same age, and they look vastly different. They look so much younger and so much freer. And I believe it's because as humanity continues to evolve, we become more connected and sometimes disconnected to ourselves, but creativity has gotten stronger over the few decades, right? We are finding more mediums to express ourselves. So that's just something else that I recognized and I noticed. So that's what I wanted to share with you today as far as the creative code of the sacral energy. So your sacral energy represents your inner artist, your inner poet, your inner dancer, and it does not matter how it looks, it just matters that it moves. And when you let yourself express what words can't say, you remember who you are. You become freer in your soul. And so that concludes our episode for today. Of course, we do an after the show deep dive in our private community. You can find the link down below. That also comes with a 30-day pleasure challenge. I would love for you to join, and you can repeat it every single month if you want to. And in our next episode, we're going to explore the worthiness code and why receiving pleasure and rest and beauty is not something that you have to earn. All right. Well, thank yourself so much for showing up today. And thank you for tuning in to the She Sacral podcast.